We're live.
No going back now.
Anna is our first non-producer to join, which sounds like Anna. I've been friends with Anna for years. She's actually a very talented visual artist and actor and very forward-thinking. And I feel like, we'll see. We'll have to pivot. So who knows? Like maybe today, our first meeting, we're recording everything for posterity, is like we start with one, and then who knows? Maybe 5 months from now, we've got 100. So Megan had a really cool idea about maybe what we do is we start opening it up to random people and polling them, and it's kind of doing two things, right? We're sort of documenting the effects of this virus in real time as it develops, but we're also creating this sort of, in a way, like documentary about our process. And if we make something spectacular, there's a lot of value in that too. So it's just a cool way to make art, I think. Okay, I'm done.
Well, thanks, Bobby's eyeball.
Yeah.
So part of the meeting was that, and part of the meeting is that we're going to kind of like just start a discussion about what this whole coronavirus thing has done to affect our lives on a daily basis. And I think we have like a couple questions that we're just going to like table to the group, and then we can all just kind of talk about our personal experiences and all that fun stuff. So I think the first question that we had was, what has become normal now that this is our new normal? So like, what's something that before you didn't really realize that was happening, or maybe it was not happening, but now it's just normal. It's something you do every day. Yeah.
Who wants to go first?
I think we'll open it to Anna, maybe, since she's our first non-producer. Welcome. Happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. So something that's normal, I'm aware of being normal now, like going to the grocery store or going for a walk. Like I went by the dollar store today, and I was extremely aware of myself being there, and had the distancing of everyone. I was aware of other people. I was aware of how I may affect other people, giving them space as well. But also another thing I find interesting is because we're keeping a distance from one another, I feel a little bit at peace that people are not going to get in my space.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That makes sense, because then you're just like, oh, I have room to breathe. I don't have to. They're aware of me as well, so they'll walk around me. I have space to choose the product I want.
And do you think you notice people more than you did before? Because even though you have to distance yourself, usually when you're walking through a grocery store, you don't pay any mind to people at all, right?
No. Yeah. I'm aware of them, but I'm also aware of them being aware of me. So it's also kind of nice. You're just kind of respecting one another as a result of staying away. So I guess my concern is, are we going to be afraid of each other because we were already becoming distant from one another, and this is taking us further apart? So when you take people apart, are we longing to be closer again now? And what's this actually going to create? So
yeah, that's a really good point. Like, I know, like, we talk about it a lot. Like, in my building, no one says hello in the elevator, really. We all just stand there awkwardly, normally. But now I'm just like, don't even come in here. I'm finding myself being very, like, angry at people who probably don't even deserve it. Like, if I'm walking down the street and another person is on the sidewalk, I'm like, what are you doing on my sidewalk? My sidewalk, stay away, you know? Like, I'm almost afraid of people. Like they're gonna like cough in my face. I heard that's happening some places. Like, I don't know how valid it is, but I've heard it's happening in some places where people are coughing in other people's faces because they're sadistic or whatever they are.
It's a lot of racism.
I've heard specifically like guys doing it to women too, right? I've heard like it's almost like a display of toxic masculinity.
Wow. It's also a display of racism too, because a lot of people who are being coughed on are Asian Canadian, Asian American, you know, across the globe. And so often, right. So has anyone done that to you, Bobby? Because people are doing that, just assuming it's calling it, you know, with Trump calling it a Chinese virus, there's a lot of racism that's putting Asian Canadians and Asian Americans at risk now. That goes beyond the virus at all.
No one has done that to me yet. Hopefully that'll happen this week. Hopefully. I could use the attention. Yeah, that, I don't know. That's so weird. I mean, I'm half, so I don't know. Maybe they don't know I'm Asian or something. Although it's funny because I'm half Chinese, half Italian. So it's kind of like the worst for both sides of my family in a way. Because it's like the Asians, I guess we created it by accident. So now everybody hates us. And then I have family in Rome. So like Italy seems like the death rate is the highest percentage-wise in the world. Like I think it's like really, really high. It's like 10% or something.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of elderly. Like they have a very old population. So
yeah, everybody smokes.
Yeah.
And nobody cares about whatever. You don't tell me what to do. I'll do whatever I want. You know.
And I know from traveling to Europe that a lot of their food consumption and their daily habits are different from ours. I went to France a couple of years ago and I would see people lining up in the morning at the market to get fresh bread. Whereas here in North America, you know, we will just kind of grab bread from the store and it'll last for a week kind of thing. So I feel like it's almost disrupted their lifestyle even more than it's disrupted ours, because we're kind of used to preserving while they're used to fresh and cooking things. How has your family been coping with the risk, Bobby, knowing that you have family in Rome?
So to be honest, I have 3 high-risk family members that I have to like literally think, oh, like, are they gonna die? You know? So, and it's not even just if they contract the virus, because if they do, like they're so high risk that there's a very good chance, quite frankly. But then it's also like my aunt just had an issue at home. Like I think she fell or something, but then I think that they don't want her to go to the hospital because she may contract the virus there. So it's also the effects of the fear of the virus. And it's interesting, right? It's like, so I've been tracking sort of morbid, but I think a lot of people are doing it, right? They have sort of like death trackers, for lack of a better term.
They do. It's like a globe.
Yeah, but it's interesting though, because if you really look at all the different countries, there's very different death rates in different countries. Like in Canada, we're like less than 1%, and in Italy, it's like 10%.
Yeah.
So that's like the number of people who get it die. So it's like, well, why are people dying in Italy at a rate that's like 2,000% what it is in Canada? Mm-hmm. So it's interesting, right? In a way, it's a condemnation of culture and healthcare systems, and it's actually fascinating from an international perspective. Like it's disconcerting, but you realize like the death isn't sort of inherent, sort of like the virus isn't inherently like problematic in terms of death. Like it really is. It's how you handle it. And so it's interesting. It's like, well, why are certain, like the same virus is having such a difference in outcome based on where you live?
Yeah. And I think it's also a country's reaction to it and how fast it reacts. I find here in Canada, Trudeau has reacted quite quickly in having us all self-isolate. Whereas I think in the US and in Italy, I know that the US has become the new epicenter of it because Trump took such a long time to react and contain it. And he was denying it for a while before he actually took steps. And so I know there are a lot of cases there. And in Italy, I saw there were these posts of people warning us to take steps now to self-isolate because their country didn't. There was a lot of denial. And then it got out of control where people can't handle it. And doctors are having to decide, well, we only have 1 ventilator and 2 patients, who's going to get it? And that's the sad reality of it. So I think it not only depends where you live, but it also depends how the leaders of your country react. And it can also affect the rest of the world, because if they're not limiting travel, then it could spread a lot more easily to other countries.
Okay, so Stephanie asked her question, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then so Megan, what was your question?
So the question that I had that I think is interesting, because I'm seeing a lot of posts online about people talking about how their mental health is suffering by staying inside and being so cooped up and self-isolated. And that's kind of the other edge, the other side of the coin, right? So I want to pose the question to the group: how has your mental health been affected by being isolated so long and adapting to this new lifestyle in the wake of a pandemic?
I can go first because I have to jet out in a couple minutes. So for me, the very first week, I was like super positive. I was so productive. I was like baking. I was playing, like practicing my guitar. I was doing my taxes. I was working for 8 hours a day, getting like lots done. Like I was like killing it. And then I painted my bedroom. Like I got so much shit done. And this week, I want to do fucking anything. Like I just want to lay here and not do anything. Like I make sure my kitchen's clean. Like we make sure we take the dogs out, but other than that, it's like I seriously I don't want to be here. And it's like it's making me feel like really trapped, and I'm like feeling in the second week that everything is kind of like closing in on me, and I'm just like I just want to go see my friend. Like that's all I want to do. I want to go see our family. Like we can't see our family, we can't see anything. And it's like at first I was like, okay, well if we self-isolate for say 2 weeks, then maybe we can go like self-isolate with our parents and like hang out with them for a bit. But then like the more time we're spending here, the more like we risk getting it every time we take the dogs out. And because of where we live, like I bump into 10 people every time I take the dogs out. So it's like I think it's becoming more of like a realization that we're probably not going to be able to like self-isolate with any other people, because we're not like we can't quarantine, we can only distance. So anyway,
I mean,
how I feel.
I found that too, and I live in Toronto, and so it's terrifying for me, you know, walking down the street and seeing 10 people I could catch it from, or I could potentially spread it to, because people my age are seem to be people who might not necessarily get it or experience symptoms, but we could be carriers for it and unknowingly pass it on to others, which is the terrifying part. So I know what you mean. It's hard, especially you can't spend time with your family. I noticed that, you know, I didn't want my grandmother to go grocery shopping because it makes me scared every time. She lives in Toronto too, and so I picked up some things for her, and when I went to drop them off, I lathered my hands in hand sanitizer. I rolled down my car window and passed it out from a distance. So I didn't even talk to her much. I just said, here you go, window rolled up, by, so that she didn't catch anything, you know. And it's a terrifying part about it. You can't get too close to the people you love. I've been lucky to, you know, go up to where my parents live, which is kind of a smaller town, and stay with them for a while to kind of get out of the epicenter of it. But it is terrifying, just the idea of self-isolating alone and not having anyone around you. Anna, what do you think?
I started seeing someone just before all this happened. So I've been going between his place and my place, and he's been working. He's been building at a bar. So every time he goes somewhere and then I go to my place and his place, I try to keep it very simple, but then I worry. It's scary because each person you contact, you could get them sick. So I think about that. But I've been trying to keep it very simple. And also, like, there's denial. Is this really happening? That part keeps running. And it's like, I feel like I need to be more productive. But then it's just like, how do you start something new not knowing when it's all going to end? And so it's kind of a weird limbo place. At the same time, it's an opportunity for all of us to connect. And even this is the third Zoom call I'm on in the past 2 days, but I haven't joined any other ones. And now I'm like, okay, I'm embracing this. Okay, we have this opportunity. So we're learning other ways to communicate. And it feels like we're still close and it is productive. So just learning to think a little differently and to just accept it that this is happening. So that's where I'm struggling.
And you mentioned the new person that you're seeing is working right now. How does that affect you every time you see that he's got to go to work? Is that difficult?
He goes to one specific place every time. And they're trying to keep a restaurant business going. So there's only one person working there, and this is a guy who moved in as his roommate. So he's keeping him out of the house, so we're not all there together. And it definitely like put an interesting strain on the relationship because we're spending so much time together as a new couple, depending on one another. So then I get to go home. I get to step away from it. But when I go there, I'm fixing my bike right now, so I can just bike back and forth. I started rollerblading, which is allowing me to move past people really quickly.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of people are biking as opposed to walking because people can't get close to you when you're moving fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Maybe if you go fast enough, the virus can't catch you.
Maybe. I haven't fixed my bike in 5 years, but I took my bike in to get fixed.
That's good. So it's almost making us more productive in a way, even though the self-isolation is bringing us down.
Yeah. But it's like, how long will this go on for? And hopefully everyone is healthy and alive, but there's this image in my mind of the world ending and all these people that I'll never get to see again. So at the same time, maybe it's an opportunity as well. So I don't know.
And I think a lot of people have that image. If you've been on Netflix recently, I don't know if you've noticed, but the most popular programs being watched in Canada right now are Pandemic, the series, and Contagion. What are your thoughts on that?
That's your question now?
Oh yeah, that's my new question.
I think we're like, it's also obsessing over what's going on.
Yeah, Bobby, how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
Considering you watched it.
Contagion?
Oh, I know you freaked yourself out with that.
Oh yeah. So it's like I'm listening, but I have all these different thoughts about what we're doing, which I might as well say. I was gonna like save it for later, but I'm like, we're doing something really cool here, I think, because we're like chronicling this as it develops. And we'll talk about this later, but this could be a really cool and healing thing. And we're kind of making a documentary about this as it reveals itself, as it unravels. And then it occurred to me, like, maybe this is at least one element of what we're doing. Like, maybe this is the series.
Yeah, maybe
like
it
maybe it's like we every 3 days or a week or what, we'll decide what we want to do, and then anybody who wants to be part of this conversation will be part of it. And then maybe we like just release it, like every single one is an episode, and we just release it publicly because we're like recording these conversations, just because it occurs to me like how healing it is. And how you talk about mental health, but I feel better just honestly talking to the three of you, because it's like we're sharing, and it's like perspectives, and it's like we're kind of just creating this thing together. And I think it's actually sort of beautiful that in this world where everyone's so disconnected, like we're finding a way to connect in real time. And I feel like that might be really useful, because look, we don't know how long this is going to go on.
Oh, we have no idea, and that's the scary part about it, not knowing when it's going to end or how it's going to end.
Like, what if this is like a 2-year? I mean, I don't think it'll be that long, but it's funny because I actually
months. It could be 18 months.
It could be. It could be.
You talk about my mental health. I actually feel very comfortable, which is, I mean, maybe weird to say. At the beginning, I was really like, how am I gonna? And now it's like I figured out. It's like, oh, it's like I just cook more and I work out inside, and I've actually been. I mean, I'm kind of antisocial, but I've actually been more social, because I'm just hitting people up and, hey, like, how are you? Like, what's going on? And family, friends. I'm getting more done. like business wise, it's like I kind of have more projects. Like it's in a way, it's like it's been actually great for me. But then it's, I don't know, it's sort of complex, right? Because like people are dying.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I feel really sort of two ways about it, because in a way I feel like it's actually could be really, really good for society, but then what's the cost of that?
Yeah. I mean, even in terms of
Sorry guys,
climate
I'm just gonna duck out now. I didn't want to leave without saying goodbye to everyone, but thank you guys. This has been so much
Okay.
fun, and I can't wait to watch the rest of it.
All right, talk soon.
Bye.
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 I was just going to add to that and say, you know, if you also notice, there have been a lot of posts about the climate improving with all of us staying inside. Smog in China is at an all-time low, and you're beginning to see through the waters in Venice, Italy, and see more wildlife start to come back. What are your thoughts on that? Because yeah, there is a cost, but there's also a benefit for the environment in a way.
I'll start.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. That's related to, because we worry so much about where nature is at, and it's beautiful to see how quickly it can rejuvenate, which is probably shocking. I never thought that the sky would clear so quickly. And the one thing that I really noticed is before every time I go up north, I come back to the city and I found it very noisy and loud and annoying. Like I couldn't stand the noise. It was actually shocking and scary. Like you feel like a wild animal caught in the middle of like downtown core, and it's unnecessarily loud. And now it's just like, it's so quiet. It's so beautiful. You don't have the ambulance, the fire trucks. It's just this unnecessary noise and screaming and anger. So I find that to be beautiful. That in itself makes like the city, the Toronto, that's such a big city like now, it makes it quieter and more bearable. Like I feel like I can hear my thoughts better now. I have a lot of positives, but yes, there are a lot of concerns about what's going on. But I feel like we need this, and we needed to discover this and this peace in ourselves. And as artists, we always need to be in an incubator to be creating. And now we're forced to just sit there and not have to rush off somewhere. We don't have any bars. We don't have this pointless socializing where we just go out and party. We have to create. Like our need to create is really coming out. And I love it that we're recording this, because this is where we're at. This is our thoughts. This is really what's going on with us as a society, even before this.
Yeah.
So I think it's beautiful that everything's coming to life more.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Bobby?
I mean, like everyone, it's interesting because it's like I'm consuming so much content. So I'm sure everyone is, because in a way you don't really have anything else to do.
Yeah.
But so I've been talking to some of the top television writers and showrunners in the last couple of days, just friends and contacts that I just, I'm taking this opportunity to reconnect to people. And I get really, really interesting points of view, right? And so a friend of mine who's, very talented writer and showrunner, Peter Mullen, we were talking yesterday, and he was talking about how now is actually a good time for writers, because it's like you can really, really develop and refine all your scripts. Like you can really like you have the time to like really like tweak and finesse, and which is actually really interesting if you think about it, because it means that when this is all done, whenever that is, it's almost like the standard for quality of scripts is going to increase, because now everybody has had the time to do it, right? So I kind of feel that way about society, in that our collective knowledge, I think, is just going to increase, because now it's like we just have time to sit and learn things. And I think that it's actually going to make everyone smarter.
Yeah. So
anyway, this is all to say that there are definitely good things, but it just kind of feels like it's sort of like a reset.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, okay, look at your life. what is your life? What was your life like? What is your life going to be? And then, I don't know, I don't want to be, I don't know, too morbid about it. But there is something about the idea of preparation, right? So for example, if you sort of didn't pay attention to your body, right? And your health, if you didn't pay attention to your finances, if you didn't pay attention to, so there was a book that I didn't read, but was very popular during the 2008 financial crisis. It was called Black Swan, right? And it was this book that was hinged on a very simple premise. And the premise was that if every day you saw a white swan for like, I don't know, 10 years, every single day you saw a white swan, that doesn't negate the possibility that tomorrow you may see a black swan. So what happens is that people get used to, so I originally started in economics at U of T, and then I transferred to theater. That's a whole other thing. But that's my background, right? So it's really interesting that, like, if you think about it, life is a series of cycles in the economics world, right? It goes up, it goes down. And we have been so on an upward trajectory in many ways for like a decade economically, that no one ever thought it's going to come crashing down, perhaps very abruptly, which it has. But for me, having studied business cycles, even though things have been really, really, really good for a really long time, I've been waiting for this to happen. So I had a stockpile of savings. I have some money for investments that I purposely took like a lower yield. So I would make less money, but it was like zero risk. And I always stockpile food. Not that I'm like, oh, Armageddon's going to hit. But I always was like, look, there's no reason to believe that things are just going to get bad all of a sudden. But the reality is, if you think about the premise of Black Swan, eventually they are going to get bad. Yeah. So I think that it's an interesting reinforcement of these ideas for society, because, you know, you kind of have to prepare for the worst. Not that you don't want to be optimistic and hopeful and enjoy your life, but you also have to be realistic. I mean, these things do and can happen. And here's the thing, once this is over, it can and will happen again. Yeah. Right? So you really have to do things like take care of your body, right? Like take care of your fitness, take care of your finances, because those, if you haven't, those are all the vulnerable people right now. It's people with compromised immune systems, people who are obese, people who smoke, people who are unhealthy, people who are living paycheck to paycheck. And this is not to be judgmental towards anybody, but I think it's a good opportunity for people to realize, look, like, we're human.